All right, training camp is here, and so are we. Back with the takeaways from each of my training camp stops over the course of the next month. We're starting the tour this year in Southern California. 5 teams training here this summer. 3 of those teams coming from out of town. One of those teams is the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are holding camp here for 2 reasons. Number one, Antonio Pierce wants to give his players the experience of getting away for camp, which he had himself as a player. Number 2, coming here gets them out of the heat of Las Vegas. So my 5 takeaways after spending reporting day here at the Raiders team hotel. Takeaway number 1, it is not Gardner Minshew's job yet. Aiden O'Connell is making a real push to be the starting quarterback. Minshew was told when he signed a 2-year, $25 million deal back in March that he had to compete for the job. And O'Connell is making him do that. He impressed in the spring, the second-year man did, with his accuracy, with his command of new coordinator Luke Getsy's offense, and maybe most of all with how he'd won his teammates over, most notably Devontae Adams. That's a big deal for Antonio Pierce. Takeaway number 2, right there in the receiver room with Adams is a second-year man named Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker was a big play waiting to happen as a rookie, averaging over 17 yards a catch, over 7 yards a carry, and he came back in the spring more explosive and stronger. He's going to be a big part of the plan for Getsy. He's another guy that they can move around, and they added a important one in the draft in Brock Bowers. Both those guys should give Getsy a chance to get pretty creative with what he does on that side of the ball. Takeaway number 3, maybe the most improved player in the spring was Malcolm Kuntz, the 4th-year defensive end, former 3rd-round pick, really broke out at the end of last year after Pierce took over. His get-off, his work with his hands, all of that's improved, and playing on a defensive line that should be the strongest group on the team, alongside new addition Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby. Nobody here would be surprised if Kuntz wound up with double-digit sacks. Takeaway number 4, there are major holes on the roster, and maybe the 2 biggest ones are on the offensive line and the corner, and 2 young guys can really step up to help the team out in those spots. Right tackle Thayer Mumford's an important piece in the offensive line. He's got a world of talent. If he can grow up a little bit, then the other pieces could fall into place up front, which of course will be important for whoever's playing quarterback back there. And then at corner, Jack Jones, who had a host of off-field problems before being drafted by the Patriots a couple of years, who washed out in New England because of his off-field issues, flashed again his unbelievable ability over the course of the spring. The question is whether or not he's matured to the point where he can make that sort of difference in the secondary. But if Thayer Mumford becomes the right tackle and becomes a top shelf right tackle, and Jones answers the bell at corner, 2 trouble spots could be taken care of for the Raiders. And finally, takeaway number 5, maybe the most impressive thing about Antonio Pierce is how he has acknowledged what he doesn't know. He obviously played a long time in the league as a player. He's got what he needs as a leader, but there are some blind spots here for a guy who didn't spend a ton of time as an NFL assistant. And so a couple of guys who've been really important here, Joe Philbin on the offensive side, Marvin Lewis on the defensive side. To me, the hires of both those guys, an acknowledgement that Pierce knows that he needs some help, and there is a learning curve that he's battling there and becoming a head coach. And somebody else is coming in next week to help out at training camp here for the Raiders. Again, another acknowledgement of this. Tom Coughlin, who won a Super Bowl with Pierce back in New York. He'll be here next week as well.